Greetings, everyone. I am going to be showing off a little bit with skills, skill usage, and kind of explaining a little bit about how skills work in Shroud of the Avatar. I'm going to touch on both production skills and combat skills. So, starting off, I have an order from a friend of the guild, Monkey, who is in our allied guild of Memento Mori, and they want me to make some whistles for taming. So I'm gonna go make some whistles for them, and that process is gonna involve me breaking down some components and making some items and gaining and losing experience, skilling up and skilling down. I'll show you guys how to skill down and feed your experience pools. So starting off, hi, I'm Duke Violation, and this is Let's Play number 3. Let's Play 3 is going to be based on skills. Sorry if I didn't get this labeled right on the live streams. I'm kind of in a hurry. I'm between vacations right now. I'm going to be doing Let's Plays almost on a daily basis, but I only have a couple days. I just got back from Gen Con. Awesome, by the way. Next year is Gen Con 50. So 3 years in a row, we've had a SotA gathering at Gen Con. And it's been a lot of fun. And next year at Gen Con 50, my understanding is there's supposed to be a pretty big gathering from one of the larger guilds, and they've agreed to make that into, instead of just a guild gathering, more like a convention push. So, the couple day break here is between Gen Con and a family vacation, and then after that I'll be on a pretty regular basis of streaming on most likely almost a daily basis. So, anyway, so let's go ahead and explore some of this and just play through the game a little bit. And what you've seen is me zoning. That loading screen was a zone, and I'm about to hit another one as I zone again. Shroud of the Avatar is an instance-based game. With the instances, as you move from one scene to another, it has to load all the information because the instancing is not unique. A lot of instance games, when you see something, other people do not see that. So in this game, the supplies on this merchant trader here are going to be the same no matter what instance you're in. So if you're in single player mode, you see the exact same inventory that I see in multiplayer mode. And if you're in a different instance of multiplayer mode, you see the exact same inventory that I do. So a lot of times with trading, you'll find that we actually push our trades through chests. So when people are trying to get things made and we don't have all the elements inside of our instance, we'll just take the elements that are in another instance and drop them in a chest, and the person in the other instance will pick it up. So chest trading is still a thing. Let's go ahead and break some of this down. So here I'm using the skill of carpentry, and I'm going to salvage some materials. I'll make sure I have enough components on me with wood scrap to help lessen the blow of the wood cost of making some of the poles that I need for the animal whistles that I'm going to create. So wood scrap is gained from breaking down components on the carpentry table. I'm salvaging over here. Once I'm done salvaging, I have the wood scraps, and I'll head over to the milling table. The milling table is the one with the big saw in the middle, and then I'm going to look at making some timber. So if you look, there's different ways that you can make the timber and different types of timber you can have. I'm specifically looking for making timber from scrap, though. So up here I'm going to search the word scrap, and I just didn't put an SCR. And then you'll see that I've got the option to make timber at a lesser cost than if I was to make it with only the wood. As with all of my Let's Plays, if you're in Twitch chat and you're talking, I will see and I will respond to you. So please feel free. I'm going to just say a quick hi. hi, example. Please feel free to talk, and it'll actually come up on the live stream. Alright, so I'm going to switch types of wood now, and I'm going to go from the pine over to the maple and make some more. So I need to see timber, 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 timber. So we've got a good chunk here. Maybe we won't need to make some more. Let's see what happens here. So when you're up to a carpentry or milling station or any workstation for that matter, if you want to quickly and easily access it while you're pulled away, you can actually just hit the letter E while you've got your mouse over it. I play in mouse mode most of the time. I find that easiest for me. Pardon me. Little yawn there. So one of the things that we have here is a merchant that we're utilizing to trade up our materials. We want to stock a large supply of materials. So I need wax. Instead of going to the wax guy downtown, I'm going to save myself a little bit of time and buy it off this merchant here, but they're going to be a little bit more expensive. All the gold is actually cycled back in, and we use the profits of that to buy more wax next time around. So saves us a little bit of time while we're crafting. If other guilds want to start that process, it would be beneficial to you guys. So the request was to make him some whistles. I already know the recipe that I need for the whistles, so I'm just kind of pushing through the components real quick. But the one thing that you'll notice is as I make these components, I actually am going to pull over here to my crafting, and I'm going to show you my milling. It's actually locked. So every time I craft something, my experience pool, instead of skilling up this ability, it's going to feed the experience right into the pool, and I'll be able to use that to skill up other abilities. Another option I have is to actually turn it down. With it turned down, I'll actually be able to feed myself even more experience than just what I get from making an item. And I can then take my experience that I have invested into this skill and put it into another skill. Now, this is done at a loss. You don't get 100% return on investment here. But in a situation like milling, where I've gone a little bit too far, I'm able to feed myself back that experience pretty efficiently as opposed to leaving it there unused. I just don't need that high of a milling success rate. So I'll leave it turned down and feed myself back down to about the 65 mark or so, and then I'll turn it back horizontal again. But this is a good example of how turning down can feed into your experience pool. So understanding experience pool and skills, it's something a lot of people struggle with. And in Shroud of the Avatar, they kind of have a new way of combating botters. I don't know if it's completely new, but it's the first time I've seen it done in the game, where they're essentially hybriding the tree skill system to fight against min-maxing. They're utilizing the use-based skill system to fight against needless progression of abilities, and they're utilizing experience pools to fight against macro gameplay. So You have to utilize an actual player doing things or a glider. You can't just sit there and do the same thing over and over. If you run out of your experience, your skills will stop gaining. On top of that, if you run out of your um, skills benefit, you'll be wasting your experience into it. So milling, for example, the beneficial points that I need is to get to the maximum success chance of doing everything on the milling table. After that, I'm basically done. For my purpose, I don't need any more milling skill. So I then lock that ability and don't put more experience into it. Every time I use a skill, it gains whatever experience percentage it has up to a certain cap. So if you have 1,000,000 banked experience, it might put in, 5K experience. If you have 500K banked experience, it might put in 5K experience. But if you only have 5K banked experience, it could only put in 500 experience. Every time you use that skill, that experience gain is what decides on what levels up that skill. So understanding how that process works is really important to progressing your avatar's abilities. So now I'm going to move over to the carpentry station. I'm going to take all these poles that I just made and kick out some whistles. If you notice, I have 20 poles, but I'm only able to make 10 of this production item. The crafting is only able to do 20 of the items in one shot. I'm actually going to stop this before crafting it because I'll explain something else and the reason why. But it's only able to mass produce 20 at a time. However, I have two different elements here. I have a maple pole and I have a pine pole. So I now have the raw elements that don't match for mass production in two different levels. So I am going up to the second level of creating an item. I took my timber to make a pole. Now I'm going to take my pole to make a whistle. And I have two different forms of the timber, which netted two different forms of poles. So I now have to make two different sets of whistles. I'm actually, if you notice, I'm going to run into another problem here. My durability of my rasp is not going to survive this crafting process either. There's a lot of things to pay attention to while crafting. So my total supply and batch processing is going to be dampened by... oh, what a bummer. I failed that recipe, which means that I took a double durability hit on my rasp. And the fuel was consumed as well. But the end result process of what I'm making of the different whistles, they're actually all going to stack into a single stack. So it doesn't matter if they were made with pine or if they were made with maple. I'm going to have a single stack of 20 whistles. There are some items that are not the case. So, for example, if you make a bunch of maple boards and pine boards, they're not going to stack. If I make a maple bow and a pine bow, it's not going to stack. Bows in general don't stack either, but it's good to recognize. Let me see if I have another rasp here. I don't. It's good to recognize that some things will and some things won't stack. So when you go into create, just because you don't see that you can create everything doesn't mean that's the case. Pay attention to what elements you have in your inventory. As to the skill usage, you'll see that my carpentry skill is actually set to gain. So here in a moment, I'll show you how this pulled experience is dropped down on every single time I hit something here. But let me see if I can pick up another rasp from this guy. Don't think I can, so I'll have to make a trip downtown after all. So while you're doing things, it may seem like you're unable to do something because of XYZ purpose. When in this situation, I'm explaining the batch process that I can't batch up 20 of my whistles because I have 10 types of one pole and 10 types of another pole. But that's not the only situation where you run into that, where if you're paying attention to what you have, sometimes it can be a little bit misleading. And I prefer it this way. I prefer it to be very granular. Some people feel like in time that will be improved. I think it would actually be a very bad move if they were to merge all your pine and maple together into one batch creation, because the end result in crafting is very different between pine and maple for different types of things. So if I'm making a pine wand making a maple wand, I'll get different enhancements on my wand. So I like to know which batch I'm creating and how much I have of each one. Now with the skills, every time I make something, you understand that experience pool that I talked about earlier. If you have so much experience and you utilize a skill, it gets applied into that skill. The first time you utilize a skill in a day, you get a bonus amount of experience applied to it if it's available in your experience pool. If you do it more than once a day, then there's less of amount that's applied to it. So every day, making sure you do at least one time on your primary abilities is kind of important for your progression system, making sure that you keep up with the curve of things. But also, for those of us that don't want to sit back for 6 months while we're leveling, we do it more than that. So making sure you keep a good chunk of experience pool is important as well. I personally don't have a very big chunk, so before I end this video, I'll explain more than just turning down an experience bar on how to get some of those things back. Yay for a drink. Thank you to my wife for that. So, at this point, I've got my rasp, and I'm going to head back, and I'm going to be able to finish making stuff up here. My travel is going to be a lot faster than most people's, and that's just because I've built my character to cut back on travel time. One of the things that irritates me the most in games is needless time. I like to spend my time the way I want. I think going from point A to point B is never the way I want to spend my time. So as you watch, you'll find that I will burn recall and teleport scrolls faster than most people. I sell those scrolls at competitive rates. I'm matching the Owl's Head rates and any vendor I find in Brittany Wharfs to keep myself as cheap as possible. And on top of selling those, I keep myself in supply. So I'm able to get from point A to point B as quickly and efficiently as possible. But that said, the the teleport scrolls have their own cost behind them as well. And sometimes the time spent is actually cheaper if you were to walk the path or if you were to do something different than what you see. Personally, myself, I don't have a lot of hours in the day. So when I'm gaming, the last thing I want to do is be traveling. So I spend my time and efforts making sure that I don't have to travel very often. So let's go ahead and get back to these whistles, and I'm crafting these one at a time. So explaining this a little bit more, if I get an exceptional craft, I'll actually get a bonus experience. So my pool is 7022 here, and I'm going to come over here and I'm going to create a whistle. I'm going to watch this pool, and I'm now at 6994. So I put 28, 26 in there? And that goes directly into this carpentry skill. So every time I'm crafting this, I'm putting about 20 experience into it. It's not that much. When everything is said and done, that's actually one of the smallest amounts of experience that I transfer. I'm making it with a purpose, though, so there's no reason not to burn through this and get it made. You want to pay attention to stuff like this because while you're trying to progress, if you're sitting here and doing a single item that's only giving you 15 or 20 experience when you have another one that utilizes the same resources that could give you 200 experience, you should do that. Another thing is, if you notice that the amount that it's applying is decreasing, there's a good chance your actual pool of experience is too small. So it might be a good idea for you to up your experience pool a little bit. Now, the experience pools are split in two. We have adventuring experience and we have producer experience or crafting experience. They used to call it producer experience, but I believe it got renamed to crafter experience. So the bottom line is these pools are independent, so you can't sit here and craft for 20 hours, bank up a bunch of experience, then macro your skills and become a better PvPer. They feel like it's important to keep things independent, so you can't min-max the system in an exploiting type of a way. Exploiters are going to be around anyway, and there are people who have found ways to make this process faster and easier, utilizing broken game mechanics such as mesh and things like pathing and bad AI in certain areas. I strongly recommend, for the sake of everyone, that if you find one of those problems, you report it. I haven't heard of anybody getting banned who was actually trying the best that they could to be a good player and a good person, but I have heard of people who were breaking the system that did get in trouble. So at this point, you can see that my pooled experience has actually gone up quite nicely, but now, oh no, I've lost a skill point in my milling. So I've got this set down intentionally, and I wanted to feed back in because I've got too small of a pool. But what about if I don't have that? What about if I want to grow my experience pool without taking away from another skill? Well, that's when you get into uses. Every time I do something, I am feeding into something, whether it's feeding into a skill or feeding into my experience pool. So every time that I am crafting something, and every time that I am refining something, and every time I'm harvesting something or gathering, I am gaining experience. If I have that skill locked, which if you go through and look, I've got a maintain, a lock, lock, and lock, or a maintain, excuse me. I'm not going to consume as much experience on use, and I'm actually going to be gaining that experience pool. It's important to not overfeed your skills, especially at an early level, so you have extra experience to put into the things that are important to you. So gaining that experience is simply done by utilizing the skills in an efficient manner. If you are sitting there and doing the same thing 100 times over, that's not efficient. To fight against min-maxing the system and to stop people from macroing and abusing the system, the use-based systems often get macroed. They have this experience set to degrade over time. So the first time you do it, you'll get more, and the 20th time you'll do it, you'll get less. So it's important to remember that sitting there and doing the same thing over and over again is not the most efficient way to gain skills. Simply playing the game is. But understanding how the pool feeds into skills is very important as well, otherwise you're going to waste a lot of things. So now that we have these whistles made, I'm going to go ahead and do a chest trade with Monkey. Monkey's the person that ordered this, so I'm going to give these to him, and then we will be on our way. With network troubles. That's always fun. So this icon up here means that we're experiencing network problems with the game server, and we just have to wait for it. What? So now he'll be able to actually go into that chest and pull those out. Doesn't matter where he's located. I haven't figured out the sense in it yet, but if one of you guys get it figured out, I'd be more than happy to hear you out on it. but I usually survive through it if I just wait. It usually works out okay. Um, and let's go for a scene load here. Oh, it looks like it might not be the game this time. I just got notification that I had some packet loss. Sorry if the quality of the stream decreased. If that did occur, it's back to normal. So, loading into the wharfs here. I'm going to head out. I'm going to show you how this works with adventuring. I actually need to pick up a couple of new skills. So I'm going to travel down and grab those skills real quick and then recall home. I do have a D&D session starting in about 5 minutes, so this is going to be a short Let's Play. I'll be late to my D&D session, but not by much. So we understand the experience pool, we understand how to feed into skills, we understand how to draw out of skills. What about training skills and getting new skills? So there are actual skill trainers to unlock these new abilities. You have to go to the specific trainer for your specific ability. You can't just go to any trainer to pick up any ability you want. They've really tried to push this game into being something that is very organic, and different people will have a different experience with it. Depending on where you go, you could gain abilities that other people don't have. In my situation, I want to play a very specific way, so I've researched where I have to go to get the skills and abilities that I want to have for my style of play. I am going to be a death mage, primarily focused around death magic, which is why you see this little skeleton down here. And I'm working up my death mastery so I can have some decent minions that protect me, so I can kind of sit back a little bit and cast at a distance. One of the things I did last night while playing with people is I got my Death Ray ability, which is the ranged death skill that transfers life from a target to the caster, up to level 40. The reason why that's important is because there's kind of two different key points you get with skills to be able to unlock the next level. So the first thing is, when you're using deck combat and you are adventuring and you're in combat, you have combat can be accessed through the Y interface, which is the decks. All the different interfaces you need to know about are basically up in this window selector with the stained glass window. So looking inside the combat decks, I have this primary deck where I have these different levels, these different amounts of death skills. So I'm actually going to unlock and clear this one. So I have 4 death touches, 4 death rays, 4 fire arrows, 4 healing rays, a couple of healing touches, and 4 searing rays. So I'm, if you can't tell, a bit of a min-maxer. I'm trying to get the best benefit I can out of my skills, so I stack a lot of the same cards. They come up repeatedly. Instead of waiting for a cooldown on searing ray, I might have 4 searing rays up in a row. Any glyph can come up. The downside is, when I'm in the middle of combat waiting for a searing ray, I might get a bunch of death touch, healing touch, and healing rays, which it does happen. So setting up your deck to be the highest chance of dealing you the hand you want is suggested. How do you get there? Well, you're skilled at 80. Understanding the skill system helps you to build a better deck. Every time you pass 20 points in a skill, you basically get some cool perk. At skill 20, you get more cards. At skill 40, you unlock the next tier. So I was talking about that tier-based system earlier, and I'll kind of show it to you now. So the skill trees give you different abilities. Your first and second tiers are basically your, you need this, so we're going to make it easy for you tiers. A lot of times, people are going to start with these abilities, or they're going to unlock them very quickly and easily. Most of these can be macroed up without much effort on the tier 1 skills. Half of them can be done without even having a target. Tier 2 stuff is a little bit more difficult, very essential, but still not too costly. So for example, this Death Touch here, it costs a good amount of focus, but if you notice, there's no reagent cost behind it. So I'm able to get through casting this without having much effort. Now on the next tier, our tier 3 ability, that Death Ray, it suddenly starts to have more of a cost to it. I start to have 3 different reagents, and if I try to cast it without my reagents, it simply laughs at me. It also has the benefit of doing the Death Touch almost at a range. So let me go ahead and hover over that. You can now see the cost has Black Pearl, Corpse Wax, and Nightshade. My focus cost, if you can see, just changed from 11 to 10 because of a stillness bonus you get by not moving. So the way that I play my avatar is to be a very tanky death dealer. So I put leather gear on, I put bonuses and health. I got my health up, I'm still working up my strength a little bit. And I stand in one spot and I focus on kind of tanking the mob that I'm fighting. The downside is every time you get hit, you get a chance to get interrupted based on the amount of damage that you receive. The percentage increases with higher amounts of damage. So if somebody hits you with a crit, there's a greater chance they're going to interrupt you. The upside about doing that and having that kind of tanky experience is I get the stillness bonus. As I stand in one spot long enough, after a long enough amount of time, I get stillness plus 1% critical chance and minus 5% focus costing. So I can get that stacked up to 5 times, get a 5% crit increase, and a 25% focus decrease. I have definitely been paying attention to what I feel like is the best way to play for me. And in my situation, that is increasing my amount of damage throughput by holding still. There are some skills you can take to increase your damage and to decrease your focus in the skill tree, but they're pretty far down and they take a lot of experience, and that experience is costly. As I explained earlier, you get that in crafting by utilizing your skills. In adventuring, you only get that by killing stuff. I have to complete a quest, I have to kill something, I have to do something that says I'm worthy of being able to gain another skill. So when you complete quests at the beginning, you'll notice that they give you a pretty generous amount of experience. What you don't notice very quickly until it's usually too late is that experience is being spread out across 20 to 30 skills. When you feed 20 or 30 skills, you usually run out of that experience exceptionally fast. So it's important to pay attention to what you actually want and what you don't want. One of the things I've done to get my death up is actually turn down some of my other stuff. So I am maintaining my heightened awareness. I'm not working on my quick swapping. I was going to go down to work on my follow through, but I decided not to until I got my intelligence a little bit higher. Intelligence takes more to train than some of the other abilities because it's a base stat. Base stats always take more. So when you're looking at tactics and you're trying to gain your strength, which for me as a tanky caster, I need to have strength because that helps me break out of roots and it helps me to have more life. Think of vitality being stuck there. That strength is an important stat. So now I'm training 2 of the highest costing stats at once, and it's draining out of my experience pool rather quickly. So when I complete quests or I kill something, it adds to that pool, but then I have everything I do, no matter what, applying to at least 4 skills. I have a passive being trained, I have the active skill that I used, and I have 2 stats being trained. I also have a couple other skills that are usually being worked up depending on what I cast. So an example of this will be inside of the Death Tree. If I cast my Death Ray, I'm also working up my Death Mastery. If I cast my Tap Soul, I'm also working up my Death Mastery. Because I'm taking a hit to my focus pool when I cast those, it also works up my intelligence. Because I take a hit to my life when I cast those, it also works up my strength. Every time you do something that affects that ability, it gains experience. That experience is only gained when you have the extra stuff in your pooled bar. So, real quick example of this is going to be macroing out my Death Shield. I need to go and train it. I need to access a trainer. Unfortunately, I had to walk all the way across the map to do so. The Death Trainer is found in the Necropolis Barrens. Right inside the entry, right over a hill. There's 2 different ways to get here. I was actually shown this way by Minerva. It's a hair faster than the way that I was going before. So I'll show it off to you guys as long as I can still figure it out. It's basically right up this hill here. The different master skill trainers are located in different areas. So the skill trainer for fire, for example, is in Decimus. You need to know where your master trainer is, because if you go to a trainer that isn't a master trainer, you're going to be locked from getting to your higher level skills. So my example here is if I want to train life from this guy, he's going to kind of sit here and laugh at me. None of this stuff is open to be trained. Well, wait, you have 40 skill in Healing Ray. You're absolutely right. I do. And I can train Healing Burst if I go to a master healing trainer. But since he's death, I'm going to swap over to this other side, and you'll see he has the ability to train because I've completed the quest, Summon Lich, and that was the previous Let's Play. And because I'm over level 40 in Death Ray, I can now train my Death Shield and my Death Field. So now about using these skills. Using the skills are how you put the experience into them. I've got them turned up in green, and I'm ready to actually skill gain them. So I'm going to go back over to my mage deck, and I'm going to say, hey, I want to always have these up so I can focus on skilling them up. So I'm going to lock that, and I'm going to lock, this guy right here. Now you notice he's grayed out. Why is he grayed out? Because I do not have the garlic. So he's actually redded out, I believe. So what my punishment's going to be for casting this guy is that I have the ability locked out. Down the road, there's a potential that they will put it back to the previous way, that it's a higher fizzle. But what my punishment's going to be is that I no longer have the ability to utilize my Death Shield. That doesn't lock me up completely because I can cast this Death Field. So I'm going to go ahead and cast these a couple of times and give you guys an example of the skill gains that are applied on use. So, Death Field looks like it's being set to, it has to actively do something, so let me find somebody in combat here. A lot of skills are like this. They have to actually be used effectively or they won't work. A lot of the earlier skills that you use are not like that. You can sit there and macro them no matter where you are. So a perfect example of this would be my Tap Soul. I can sit here and hit this guy, and you might even see it raise up. You saw that little green bar go up, and I probably guess 1 or 2 more uses, and it'll skill up to 46. So let's try it another time, and there we go, we're at 46. So I can sit here out of combat and apply my pooled experience over to that skill. Now you can see in the deck combat, as I'm rotating my skills underneath, that happens automatically on a timer. Utilizing these skills can be done in multiple ways. The way that I find easiest is to actually use the 1 through 6 keys above my fingers. And it's funny, there's usually a bunch of mobs around here, but I don't see one right now. So there is one, though. There's a rabbit. There's a Timberwolf. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this guy with a couple of abilities real quick. And we will try to get him killed. Now you'll get to see my life transfer in action. There's a combo. So let's go ahead and show you guys the pooled experience gain. And that's where killing it will give me the pooled experience gain. Come back over to crafting. I'm going to go ahead and lock down my field dressing. So I don't have any training going on. You can watch my pooled experience. I'm going to skin this guy. While I field dress him, sorry, it's hard to break that habit of saying skinning. While I field dress him, you'll see that the experience is actually fed 100% into my pooled crafting experience. So that's basically the overview on how to get skills, how to use skills, and how to definitely improve your combat experience through deck combat. I do think that this is the most enjoyable way to play the game. If you have any questions or need any help figuring it out, feel free to ask. Shift-clicking a target will lock that target. And there's the level up on the death field because I applied it to a monster that I was talking about earlier. But if you have any questions, feel free to look me up. You can tweet me at Duke Violation. You can find me on Facebook as Duke Violation. I'm in the forums as Violation Cloth. I'm in the game as Violation Cloth. I am Duke Violation Cloth. I've been around for several years, and I'm always more than happy to help somebody out if they just have a question and need some assistance. So feel free to subscribe, like, follow. I'll be doing more of these Let's Plays in the future. Today's a short one simply because I've got a D&D campaign to go get to. And for those of you who don't play D&D, I am sorry. It is a lot of fun if you've got a group that you can play with. That said, have a great evening, everyone.